Hey there, Sammy here with another episode of the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. And I'm excited today to talk to you about how to use social media platforms for your fundraising goals in a very specific way. Most of what we're talking about today is all about how to use Facebook to get donations for your organization. And it's a great way to use and leverage your existing audience to get people to ask their friends and families to donate and to raise some additional funds for your organization when some of your typical fundraisers can't happen these days. And hopefully a practice that you take in as part of your strategy in the long run. And I brought in Stephen Aguiar to talk with you about this because he is an expert in all this. And we had a great conversation, a super fun conversation about all the ways that you can leverage some of these fundraising tools. Stephen is a full-stack digital marketer and founder of BlueWing, and good goes further. He has a deep experience using paid media to drive positive outcomes for businesses and mission-driven organizations. Early in his career, he managed social media and audience development for independent and venture-backed publishing startups, where he cut his teeth as a one-man digital marketing department. Now, 4 years into his consulting journey, he's worked with dozens of companies to grow and convert an audience throughout the entire marketing funnel. He has a BA from Brown University and is a Facebook, Google, and HubSpot certified professional. I really hope you like some of the ideas that we bring into this episode. But before we get to it, this episode is brought to you by my new, ebook, workbook, guide. Let's call it a guide. My new guide, 9 Ways for Nonprofits to Raise More Funds Online. And you can find this at thefirstclick.net/fundraise. Now, there are 9 tools in here. You do not need to use all 9. In fact, I don't recommend doing all 9 at once, but there's lots of good stuff in here. So head on over to thefirstclick.net/fundraise to grab this guide, take a look, figure it out, what's going to be the best quick win for you, and I hope you enjoy it. Now let's get into this episode. You're listening to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern, and each week I bring you tips from myself and other experts, as well as hot seats with small business owners and entrepreneurs to demystify digital marketing and get you on your way to generating more leads and growing your business. Hey, everybody. I'd like to welcome Stephen Aguiar to the podcast today.
Hello. Hi, Sammy. Nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to just start, I kind of introduced everybody to who you are and a little bit of your background, but why nonprofit? Why growth marketing? Why is that where you landed?
Yeah, really good question. So I started my first business, my digital marketing consultancy, BlueWing, 4 years ago. And one of my first clients that I worked with was the Innocence Project. So it just sort of happened organically that one of my first clients happened to be a nonprofit. But what I've noticed over the last 4 years, I've ended up working with a lot of other nonprofits, is that there's a lot of growth marketing stuff that they could be doing that they aren't taking advantage of. So a lot of the stuff that I've been helping my nonprofit clients do is, drive brand awareness for their causes online, grow their email list, and then ultimately drive more revenue through these different growth marketing tactics. And there's obviously a lot of different growth marketing tactics to unpack. We do a lot of paid advertising, for example, email marketing, CRM consulting, stuff like that. But there just generally seems to be a big need. A lot of nonprofits, and a lot, they're not the only industry. I'm not trying to pick on them or anything, but they have an older school mentality as far as fundraising goes. And there's so many new tools out there. It's really hard, even as a professional digital marketer, to keep up with. So really what we want to do is come to them and help them out and help them sort of stay on the cutting edge of how they can be growing their footprint and driving more revenue online.
I agree 100% with it's hard to keep up with all of the digital options for people. And, I know we're going to talk about how to use social media for fundraising. But why do you think that being on social media is such a struggle for so many nonprofits? Like, it's such a brain hurdle almost, it feels like.
I think, from my perspective, nonprofits are risk averse, right? I think there's sort of a fundamental calculus with their revenue and the money they have is with every dollar do we invest into what we do? Like say you're a food bank or something, right? Do you take that dollar that you have and just buy the food for the people that you're serving? Or do you take that dollar and invest it in communications? Whether that's hiring comm staff, Facebook advertising, Google advertising, any sort of comm strategy, with the ultimate goal of trying to get more out of that dollar, right? Because you want to spend that dollar on comms, but ultimately get more revenue in so that you can then deliver on your mission. So I think that's a real, struggle for nonprofits to figure out what's sort of the risk reward trade-off between taking the money they have and investing directly into their mission versus investing in communications, and figuring out what sort of ROI or growth they can get out of it. So I think, my point of view obviously is I think there's a lot of ways nonprofits can take the revenue, some of the revenue they have, and invest in bigger growth for the future.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing for me with social media for nonprofits and where I feel like they're really missing the potential is they've got the population that they serve. So whether it be the fur babies' parents or the youth or, food bank, whatever, you've got the population you serve. You've got the volunteers that support your organization. You've got your board members and you've got your staff. And if you can leverage that correctly, you've got a whole audience that can amplify your mission and your vision on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of combined network can be really powerful if used correctly. And Facebook fundraisers are a perfect example of a tool that you can do that with.
And then now, being that many organizations have had to change their fundraising plans, it seems like Facebook ad fundraising could be a great, easy, no cost opportunity to do that, right?
Absolutely. Facebook fundraisers came on the scene, I want to say at least a year ago, probably around 2 years ago at this point. And if anyone has used Facebook in the last year or two, you've most certainly seen a Facebook fundraiser. It's those posts when you open up your feed and you see that your friend or your family member has launched a Facebook fundraiser in support of an organization and is trying to, has basically sets up a goal. Maybe it's $100 or something like that, to have their community and their peer network contribute to support that organization. So really it's a peer-to-peer fundraising strategy that's baked in natively into the Facebook platform. You don't have to leave Facebook. Some more, I guess, traditional digital fundraising nonprofits would, take you off of Facebook, bring you to their website, and then someone would, fill out a form on the website to donate. With Facebook fundraisers, you don't have to leave Facebook. And typically after you give that first donation, Facebook holds on to your credit card information. So that way it just becomes so much more frictionless to give again. There's also the peer effect, or sort of social proof effect that comes along with Facebook fundraisers, right? So when you see that your mom or your uncle or whoever is doing a Facebook fundraiser, not only are you going to give just because you want to support the organization, you're going to give because you want to support the cause that your friend or relative cares about. So it creates a really sort of nice virtuous cycle where people are donating to foundations to help the nonprofit and foundation, but also support the causes that the people in their network care about.
Yeah, I think that's what's the most powerful thing is when you have your friends and family that you trust and they are supporting that organization, you're automatically like, oh, I need to, if you've never heard of them, like, oh, I need to know more about that if they care about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a friend send you a playlist of their favorite songs.
Right.
If you trust their taste, then you'll sort of dive right in. I think with Facebook fundraisers, I know personally, I've given to fundraisers without even visiting the nonprofit's website, just because the person I know that's launching it, I know and trust them, and I know that they would want to give to a good cause, and I want to support them. And I will give $20 without even thinking about it,
Well, and one thing I love about leveraging Facebook fundraisers with individuals is you might have people in your community that can't afford to donate to the organization, but love and appreciate and are like raving fans of what you do. And that's a great way for them to support your organization without having, they can still give and raise money for your organization without having to pay themselves if they can.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely recommend, for what it's worth, to have nonprofits when they sort of ask their community to do it to help seed the fundraiser. I don't know the numbers directly off the top of my head, but I know there is some research that if a fundraiser starts with, say, $5 out of $100 already filled, you sort of want to seed the pot, right? Think about it as like a tip jar at the coffee shop, or a musician in the street with a tip jar out when they're playing guitar. They pepper the jar, with a few bucks so that people see that there's some donation, there's some momentum there, and they're more inclined to give.
Well, it's the same as when you run your fundraiser, your gala, right? You have plants typically for your paddle raise to get the momentum and things going. Exactly. Same kind of concept, right? Yeah.
So I agree that, you're definitely spot on as far as like, if you can't give that much yourself, it's a great way to still make a bigger impact because, maybe you can only give a few bucks, but, you want to pepper the jar and then get it out to your community. And then maybe that $5 donation you would have made by yourself now turns into $100 that you're able to provide for the organization.
That's awesome. What other like fun examples have you seen where people have said, this is why I'm doing it? Like, birthdays, celebrations, whatever. Have there been any unique kind of ways that you've seen people have good success with getting traction?
Yeah, birthdays are huge. I think that was sort of a little bit baked into Facebook's algorithm. When it was your birthday, I think they would sort of go into your feed and say like, hey, it's your birthday. You should do a fundraiser for a cause you care about. Yeah. Which is why I think there were so many birthday ones, all the time. But I think anytime you can find a reason, like whether it's a piece of information in the news, a news article, end of year is huge. People want to get their donations in at the end of December so that they can deduct it from their taxes. Giving Tuesday obviously is huge. Those are sort of the events that I would look for. And then, obviously any other personal events you look for in your life, whether it's an anniversary, if it's, just throwing this out there, like say, for example, you were sick and you were eventually cured or became healthy, you can, do a fundraiser around the anniversary of the day you were cleared from cancer or something like that. So I'm just, sort of spitballing here, but I think, there's the major sort of, end of year and Giving Tuesday, which are huge in the nonprofit marketing calendar. There's personal birthdays and anniversaries. And then you also just think about sort of, news items and things happening in the world that you might be able to peg your fundraiser to.
So pay attention to kind of the audience you serve. Like, so if you're an environmental organization, it might be Earth Day.
Yeah, it's a great example for sure.
Okay. And now can nonprofits set up their own fundraiser on their page, or does it have to be an individual doing it on behalf of a nonprofit?
A nonprofit can set up their own fundraiser on their page. And we definitely recommend doing that. Peer-to-peer is also great. Obviously that's when like sort of, it's more grassroots. It's users on Facebook. The other thing to consider is that any page can set up a fundraiser for a nonprofit. So another thing I've seen be really effective is like having a nonprofit reach out to influencers, maybe celebrity ambassadors or something like that. And they can set up a fundraiser through their page, and they might even have a bigger, social footprint than the nonprofit itself. So those are probably the three main ways I would recommend thinking about it, as far as like different tiers of who can run them for you.
So let's say you're doing an event, or I know we can't really do big events anymore, but let's just, for sake of that, let's say you have a company who wants to sponsor your event or sponsor something, but they can't necessarily pay for the whole thing. Could they potentially also raise funds in that way to show support for the organization then? Like, Absolutely. Just being creative and thinking outside the box when you're going after corporate sponsorships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've seen examples where, a company approaches a nonprofit and says, hey, we want to help out. And they might do something where, they donate X amount of money, but then they launch a Facebook fundraiser to have their employees match the funds. So that way, the company itself is donating, but then they're also getting their employees involved and doubling the impact. And Facebook fundraisers are a great way to sort of do that without, the technical heavy lifting of managing it through a website or some other platform.
That's a great idea. I hadn't thought about it for a employee match type of situation. Yeah. And then you might get some other customers and, you might get some other residuals in there in the mix as well.
Yeah, totally. And one thing I just want to mention, just as far as Facebook fundraisers go and tactics, definitely, obviously, you should write a blog post. I've worked with my nonprofit clients to write a blog post on their websites, how to set up a Facebook fundraiser, so you can distribute that through social and through email to sort of educate your audience on what they are and that the fact that you can set one up. One little tactic that I really like actually is, when donors come in through traditional channels, and I'm air quoting traditional, like if they come through your website and put in their email and give a donation through the credit card form on your site. One thing we've done is we'll actually set up a email automation on the back end where, like when you donate to a nonprofit, you typically get a thank you email for your donation. We'll include a call to action in that email that basically says, thank you for giving your one-off donation. Now, would you please consider getting your peers involved and launch a Facebook fundraiser?
Yeah.
That way, people come in, they donate, but then you're also giving them another call to action to basically bring that to their community and launch a Facebook fundraiser.
Well, and I think that's the biggest mistake that people make in all businesses and in all things is we don't ask for what we want them to do next. We kind of take for granted, we assume or like hope that they'll do what we want them to do. So I think that's a great tip.
Yeah. I mean, you're thinking about, someone that just donated that obviously clearly cares about your organization and is inspired at the moment. Like it's the perfect time to say, hey, thank you for donation. Did you know you could also do this to help us? So that's something that, I've seen work really well. The other thing to keep in mind with Facebook fundraisers is that they're basically their own little sub communities, right? When someone launches a Facebook fundraiser and people donate, there's like sort of a wall, a social wall within or social feed within the fundraiser where people can comment and stuff like that. So as you're, from an organizational perspective, I definitely recommend my clients to be in there and community manage the fundraisers. Go in there, thank the person who set it up, thank the people who are donating. There's even platforms that exist. I think one that comes to mind that we've used in the past is called Good United. But there's specifically platforms that help nonprofit organizations community manage their Facebook fundraisers and make sure that everyone that is running a Facebook fundraiser gets a thank you, that everyone's contributing to them gets a thank you from the organization. And that really helps, boost the engagement and develop that connection with the audience.
Are you telling people to be social on social media?
Yeah. Community management is still a thing.
It is.
I think everyone's focusing on content and content production and stuff, but you still got to sort of put in the legwork just to say thank you once in a while,
Yeah. No, that's great. So let's get to kind of a more tactical part of this, because I think by now, if you don't think that this could be a benefit for your business, then, whatever. But so setting it up, what does it look like as far as like, do I as a nonprofit then also get that information from those donors so I can send them information so that I can add them to my database?
Yeah, so that's a huge sticking point. I'm happy you raised it. So Facebook fundraisers are an excellent opportunity for revenue for nonprofits. And I haven't met a nonprofit that's going to leave that revenue on the table, right? They're going to take it. But Facebook, they've had a lot of struggles with privacy concerns, especially, in the last couple of years. And although nonprofits are able to sort of harvest the revenue from these fundraisers, you do not get the email or contact information of the actual people donating. There is an opt-in button when people donate to a fundraiser, but in my experience, only about 3% of people that contribute to a Facebook fundraiser actually opt in to provide their email. So I know when you download basically the spreadsheet from the back end of your Facebook page with all the Facebook fundraiser data, the email column is pretty much blank. So that's it's a huge concern for nonprofits. I think, they obviously want to they want to build that database internally, and they want to be able to build a connection with the people who donate to Facebook fundraisers and be able to email them and build that relationship long term. But I think they really sort of are basically have to balance like the revenue, the appealing revenue aspects with the fact that they don't get the data.
So this is where your community manager in that kind of community that gets built off of the fundraisers is super important to get, to build that engagement and to get them to take additional steps. Like,
that community manager, absolutely. And, I've seen the community management sort of cadences or sequences where people will say, thank you for donating, consider signing up to our email list here, something like that. The other thing you also can't do with Facebook fundraisers, which I know as a sort of a paid media person, I'm itching for, is the ability to create a custom audience around a Facebook fundraiser. So, you can create a custom audience on Facebook of your website visitors or your email list, so you can run ads targeting those people. If anyone from Facebook is listening, it would be really, really, really cool if you can create a custom audience of people who've launched a fundraiser or interacted with a fundraiser for the nonprofit, so that we could retarget them with a call to action to subscribe to our newsletter or any other campaigns moving forward. So that definitely is sort of a negative trade-off with Facebook fundraisers, is that the nonprofits are not able to get access to that data for the most part. That can only really happen when someone comes through your own website.
But your access to people, and I think the ability to reach hundreds or thousands of people quickly, like like your cost of that donation is so much less. And so, right, like you said, it's a trade-off, but
it's a trade-off, but I think there's no nonprofit that I've worked with that's like, you know what, this trade-off's not worth it, we're not going to do it. It's like everyone leans in hard. I think to me, it's not either or, it's both and.
Yeah.
It's both. Do the Facebook fundraisers really well, like take advantage of the native fabric of the Facebook network and the ability for these fundraisers to go viral and drive a lot of revenue for your company or your nonprofit. But also consider that, you do want to have a base of donors coming in through your website as well, that are able to capture their contact info and build a relationship over time. It's not the only way donors come in, but it is a great way. So to me, it's not either or, it's do both as best as you can.
So now, does Facebook take a percentage of the donations, or does the organization get the entire amount that's donated?
My understanding at the moment is that Facebook does not take a percentage of fundraisers that come through your own page, but they do take a small percentage, which is basically typically the standard credit card processing fee of like 3% of peer-to-peer fundraisers.
Okay, so if I'm representing my own organization on my nonprofit page, then there's no fees, but if in a peer-to-peer one, if you made one personally for a nonprofit, there would be. I know in the last couple of years that Facebook has waived that fee on Giving Tuesday. And I think ultimately they do want to waive it 100% completely across the board. I think, they're sort of positioning on it from what I've read from their, PR essentially is that they need a little bit of income to keep the platform self-sustaining. They want to keep investing in sort of growing the product and getting it out there. So, and again, it's basically aligns with a normal credit card processing fee, which, might get charged anyway if someone donates through your website. Yep. Okay. And it's super easy to set up, right?
Yeah, super easy. I think you just need to confirm you're a 501c3, link up your bank account, and you should be off to the races.
And then how quickly do the funds deposit? Do you happen to know that one?
Don't know off the top of my head. It's a good question. Don't know off the top of my head.
But I know that's something that changes often.
Yeah, I think it changes. I think it's once a month or something like that. A net deposit from Facebook. Yeah.
Awesome. So I know Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook, also has a donate option within Instagram stories for people.
They have stickers. They have donate stickers. And those are great too. We haven't seen, it's harder, with Facebook fundraisers, there's, it's sort of a little bit more of an open system. You create a fundraiser, it's easy to share with your feed, people reshare it onto theirs. With stories, it's really, people repost stories, yes, but it's not the same as really sharing on a Facebook feed. So it's a little bit more top down, and I would say, putting donate stickers on Instagram stories is another great way for nonprofits to, sort of leverage their organic Instagram following as well.
Yeah, and I agree with you. There's something about that, like that ticker bar that kind of goes across the Facebook donation button where you can see that goal. That motivates
exactly.
people.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything else specifically about Facebook that you think we should mention to folks that might be thinking about running a fundraiser?
No, I think, again, it's something, digital marketing is, you have to consider all channels, I think, all the time. I think Facebook fundraisers are great. But remember that you can't just throw up a fundraiser and expect it to be successful. You have to think about how are you using your email list and your email strategy to support it? How are you using organic search and social media, and influencers and all these other ways of getting things out there to support your Facebook fundraiser strategy? So it's definitely not a magic bullet. Make sure you think about it holistically, and you should be in good shape.
Yeah, we talk with organizations about creating kind of that swipe copy. So how can you give them social media content, like the specific, like just copy and paste this text, or just copy and paste, here's your image, like making it easy for people to share and promote.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Yeah. So you have to invest in some asset production, things like that.
So what would you say to people that are like, to organizations that are saying, okay, well, we're just really struggling with our messaging right now, or we don't know what to say, or we don't want to come across as trying to get money from people when people are, there's just a whole lot going on in the world right now. And I know that's a tough question, and I'm not, this is totally just like your thoughts, but
yeah. I don't know if I'm the foremost authority on, I like to think that it's been a crazy 3 months. Absolutely. And I like to think that, nonprofits, there's some that are doing really well right now. Maybe their mission sort of perfectly aligns with the COVID health crisis or issues of racial inequality. And those are the things that are really on top of everyone's minds right now. And those are the ones that, really should be, in my opinion, putting the pedal to the metal. This is the reason they were created, right? So I think for those, like, go nuts. I've seen some nonprofits, that are using their platform to help support others, especially ones that are bigger and more stable. I've seen, some of my clients that are bigger nonprofits, they're using their platforms to highlight the work of others. Like I mentioned, you can create a nonprofit, do your page for your own nonprofit, but you could also do it for others. So think about how you can support others. The other thing is, you have to keep a long-term horizon. I think there's a lot of nonprofits that are struggling right now because people are struggling. They're losing their jobs, and things like that. And so, a nonprofit that, might be struggling right now because there's less donations coming in, they're losing their recurring donors. The bigger donors aren't able to give that 6-figure check this year, so they have to cut down. They still have a really important mission. I'm just sort of spitballing here, but think about something like an Alzheimer's fund or something like that, right? Like that work, although people aren't talking about it as they are with other issues right now, there's still a lot of people are still affected by those issues and still need a lot of help. And we can't just forget about, those people that still need help, even though because that nonprofit doesn't directly tie into like what people are talking about right now. We still, I think, have to have empathy for those people as well. But yeah, it's a really struggling time. And you obviously don't. I think it's something that I think as a marketer you struggle with a lot.
Yeah.
Like, you almost want to work. The way I think about it to help me go to sleep at night is you want to work yourself out of a job. You want to go out there and raise as much money as possible so that you can ultimately solve the problem and shut the nonprofit down because that problem is solved, right? Unfortunately, that's not the reality, but that's sort of like the extreme situation I think of to like sort of get motivated and get inspired to raise as much money as possible for my nonprofit clients and really help them be successful.
That's a great way to think about it. And I also think, that's the beauty of the peer-to-peer on Facebook as well, is if you can, get that messaging out to your existing audience and have them do it for you, it feels more and is more genuine, because these are people, like, for example, if we go back to your Alzheimer's example, if we have families that have loved ones that are battling Alzheimer's, if they go out and share that story about their family member, it is more genuine and real.
Yep.
Especially right now, as opposed to you as an organization going out and asking for money.
And those issues, I mean, it's almost like who's not affected at this point by either COVID or racial inequality, right? I mean, someone who's Black that has Alzheimer's, is being affected in different ways right now. Whether it's, that. So I think, bigger picture, these are things that affect everybody, no matter who you are. Mm-hmm. And, as long as you're just trying your best to make a positive impact, across the board, don't be shy. Yeah. Don't be shy to ask for help, whether you're, personally, or even if you're an organization that needs it too. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get on to a less heavy subject, because it's super important. It's so important. It's so important. It's just like, I don't know. It's heavy these days, and I think it's important for nonprofits and businesses alike to just remember that you're doing amazing work. Yeah. And just like you said, even if it's not the spotlight right now, play the long game, and your work is still important and needs to be shared.
Absolutely, I agree.
Okay, so let's talk about, let's just talk briefly about YouTube fundraising, because I've seen that pop up, like all of the late night shows that are doing it from home, like all of these different kind of big media players you see now that they have on their YouTube videos, these fundraisers. So what's that about, and kind of how do we use that if we can?
Yeah. So you had mentioned that you've seen these sort of late night shows, YouTube fundraisers, they're a little bit sort of more restricted than Facebook fundraisers. Anyone can open a Facebook account and launch a Facebook fundraiser. On YouTube, you need to have 100,000 subscribers. And you need to be in the United States, United Kingdom, or Canada, whatever that matters. But you need to have, the key metric here is you need to have 100,000 subscribers in order to launch a YouTube fundraiser. You also, YouTube has a list of approved nonprofits that you can run a YouTube fundraiser for. So you want to make sure that your nonprofit is on that list, so that it is actually an option for someone with 100,000 subscribers to select a nonprofit.
So can anybody apply to be on that list?
Yes. And so that's really the thing to think about. Maybe you're lucky and your nonprofit organization has 100,000 subscribers. I think that's really just a small 1%. So really, I would think about it from an influencer play. Think about it as what celebrity or YouTube influencer might have a personal stake in your issue, and would be interested in doing a fundraiser for you. So really, again, it's sort of more of a top-down situation. It's really about, one popular YouTube channel amplifying your nonprofit and creating a revenue channel through their show or their live stream to donate to yours. So it's a little bit less peer-to-peer. It's a little bit less distributed. It's a little bit more gated. But yeah, it can be really effective if you get that right partner.
And a nonprofit doesn't have to have a YouTube channel in order to be an approved nonprofit for fundraiser.
I do not believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I agree with you. Going back kind of like that micro influencer and how you leverage your audience. It might take a little bit more research and some time, but finding those people that can support you. And again, it's a similar peer-to-peer type situation, right? If I, as the influencer, share this as a fundraiser, people are more likely to give because they already like that person.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of benefits around social proof and like the easy way to give to the platform. But it's a little bit more of an exclusive club. So yeah, that's how I think how it's primarily different than Facebook fundraising.
And so then the reason, and just kind of all together between Facebook and YouTube, I assume Facebook, because you mentioned earlier, you have to apply on Facebook to be able to run fundraisers as well. And then that just guarantees then the funds that are donated go directly to that nonprofit, as opposed to like if I run a personal one, it doesn't come to me and then I have to give that money to the nonprofit.
No. It goes directly to the nonprofit, right?
Okay. I figured that was obvious, but I just wanted to make sure we threw that out there, because
anyone's listening thinking they're gonna scam people. It's not possible. Sorry.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think you've given a lot of great ideas and tips for people. Definitely get out there and start running some online fundraisers. You mentioned earlier that you have a resource, or you have worked with nonprofits to create kind of blog posts on how to share
so
fundraisers?
We launched a platform called Good Goes Further. And we're sort of working it on a few levels. Number one, it's a private Facebook group where nonprofit leaders and marketers can come. It's moderated by myself. I go in there almost every day and post new content, things I'm thinking about, whether it's search marketing or social marketing or email or CRM or whatever it is. So that's a really good free resource. Go to goodgoesfurther.com and you can click on the link to request to join. We are also, as part of that, interviewing nonprofit marketers about the one best tactic that's working for them recently. So we have several interviews out already with a lot more in the pipeline. And basically we're connecting with nonprofit marketers across the country to ask them that one question: what's working for you?
And is that nonprofit marketers that are working as staff for a nonprofit, or that are working as, okay.
Yep. Staff at nonprofits, CMOs, heads of digital, things like that.
Great.
And basically we're recording those interviews and sharing them in the group, and just sharing them generally on Good Goes Further social media platforms, Facebook and LinkedIn in particular. So there's that content series. We're just trying to make it really frictionless for nonprofit marketers to learn from each other, right? Because there's so much change happening. Some nonprofits, again, are killing it right now. Some are really struggling, and we want to sort of help close the gap between those two. And the last thing I'll mention, is that we're doing nonprofit marketing workshops. So we are charging for them. We work with a nonprofit for 1 month and basically create a digital marketing blueprint that covers everything that they would need to get a digital marketing strategy out the door or improve on what they're doing right now. We are for the month of June or so, we are doing pay what you can. So we're having ultimate price flexibility as far as the nonprofit marketing workshop. So if anybody works at somewhere smaller that may not be able to afford something like that, or may not regularly be able to afford bringing in a consultant, this is the time to hit us up. So check out goodgoesfurther.com.
I love it. And we'll have all these links up in the show notes for this episode as well, so you can check out those resources. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I think lots of great tips. So get out there, and whether you're a teeny tiny nonprofit or a large one, Facebook fundraisers can work for you.
For sure. They can definitely work. And thank you so much, Sammy.
I just want to say thank you again to Stephen for joining me on this episode. So many good things that he talked about. And of course, everything will be linked up in the show notes that you can check out at thefirstclick.net/podcast. I hope that you will put Facebook fundraisers and donations into your strategy, and let me know, tag us in some of those so we can check them out and see them in action. For now, I hope you subscribe wherever you listen. We come to you every Tuesday, and I would hate for you to miss out on a single episode. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.